So, hello everybody, welcome along to the second Women Matrix podcast. This is our monthly chat to women in the know to help us learn, grow, and develop to become the best versions of ourselves. My name is Kimberley Walley, and I'm a director of an engineering consultancy called AEON Engineering. And having taken an unconventional route into science and engineering, I'm now passionate about empowering other women in STEM and into STEM. This podcast is a resource for the Women's Matrix as part of the wider Materials Matrix community. For more information, you might want to take a look at www.materialsmatrix.org and sign up for a free account. Or you can track us down on social media. We are at Materials Matrix on Twitter and the Materials Matrix community on LinkedIn. So, for our second podcast, we are talking all about networking. And I am joined by Michelle Chen, who is from Lucideon. Hi, Michelle, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Very
Thanks for
good.
having me
Thank
here.
you. You're very welcome. Really cool to meet you. So before we kind of get into the ins and outs of networking, talk to us a little bit about your background and kind of how networking has helped you.
Sure. So I would say my career started probably in my college career for networking. I studied chemical engineering, graduated in 2016. Subsequently, I worked full time as a scientist and engineer for an additional 3 years after my co-op. Launched 64 different products at Johnson and Johnson. That
Wow.
role itself was very actually it could have been very introverted where I would be working by myself, but because of my natural tendencies I actually started working in global teams, leading that, realized I love working with people, and then from then on out I had over the course of a year I realized I really liked working with people from across different cultures, had a realization that maybe engineering might not be the right place for me. I still wanted to be close to my roots of engineering. So I decided to pivot into technical sales consulting. And so that's where I found my career transitioning into a new point in my story at Lucidian. So now
Wow.
I've been at Lucidian for 2 years now. Yeah.
Wow. So, wow. You it's really interesting to talk about how you've kind of combined your two passions then there. So you've got your kind of science engineering degree and all of your studies, and how amazing that you've been able to find a career where you can put your love of people with that. That's great. Well done
Absolutely. Yeah.
you. Well done you. I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting some top tips from you, Michelle, about how I can get better at networking, because I'll put my hands up and say it doesn't come naturally to me. Even though I would say that I am a people's person, I do struggle with networking. And I suppose that leads me on to my next question for you about how we define networking. Because for a long time, networking to me was that horrible event where everyone goes armed with business cards and then you can only leave once you've given all of your business cards out. So you end up in this kind of like ninja throwing stars type situation where you're just trying to get rid of them all really, really quick so you can escape. And so for years, that kind of that's how I thought of networking. But I'm starting to get through our kind of prep reading that I've been doing around networking for our theme for the Women's Matrix this month. That is not what networking is all about. Only if you're unfortunate, like I think I might have been. It's so much more than that. It's about, finding, I suppose, finding your people that will inspire you, support you. Um, and I realized that networking is not just at events, we're doing it all the time. So I'm going to ask you a question about how you made that transition then from, your science engineering role, pure role, into that being that people person and really being able to stretch your networking muscles. Talk to me about that, because it sounds great. You're living
Yeah.
like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it was a very hard transition. But what helped me through it was having a set of mentors who saw the value, the things I did really well as part of my career at J&J as an engineer scientist. By the way, maybe to redefine networking, I think of it as friend working, building relationships that
Oh
develop you
wow,
as a
love
person
that. Love that.
overall. So when you think of networking, don't think of, okay, I'm going to network with someone because I can land a job. I can get a sale from this person. That's a very transactional type of networking. And to be honest, I don't like doing that as well. So when I see of it as friend working, I'm trying to think about how I can build a relationship with that person. And to build the most, in my perspective, to build the most sustainable relationship, it has to be a two-way street. So, what I like understanding when I network is, what are they looking from me? How do they want to grow themselves through my skill sets, through my network even, and how can I take from them?
Mm.
So, having that established earlier on, and it doesn't have to be, okay, well, I see that this person is a sales consultant at another company and I want to get a feel for how they do their sales. Um, it can be very loose in the beginning, and as you have that first one-on-one, you define how that relationship will shape. In that first 30 minutes, it's quite crucial that you start establishing the framework for that relationship. So whether that be a transactional, that's okay, transactional, or you actually see them as someone who you want to maintain a relationship with, a friendship with, then it's something to define earlier on. um, what I also like doing in terms of networking in the get go is defining the framework. So, how often do you want to establish a relationship? It's okay to have
Mm.
a one time, I'm going to meet with you. I don't think I vibe with you. Okay, we'll go our separate ways. But if you actually do want a relationship with this person, you want to generate more sales from this person, or you want to develop your career in that specific role, so you can't just rely on one conversation.
Mm.
Establish the framework. Ask if it's okay to connect with them again in a couple of months once you've accomplished X, Y, and Z. So start to frame what the communication strategy between both of you guys to be, and that will help make the conversation a lot more burdensome for yourself. But to answer your question, how I pivoted from engineering to sales, complete different areas of life. One is revenue generating, the other one is cost reductions. If you imagine like an engineer who is trying to reduce costs in the operational efficiencies. So I'll tell you a bit about my nature. I am a person who would talk to someone because I want to learn about their journey and have a holistic understanding of how I fit in any picture.
Yeah.
So it might be, as an engineer, I was trying to understand where I played within the business. Am I someone who is generating revenue? Am I someone who is reducing costs? What is my point in the business? Um, because I had that knack for end to end understanding, I naturally gravitated towards a, a sales consultant role because I started understanding what and learning about what makes people buy into things.
Mm.
Um, and so that transition became quite apparent after talking to several mentors.
I think that's really it's interesting what you say about nature and people's
Mhm.
nature. And I'm going to do something really professional here. I don't know how this has happened. This is my second podcast. I'm going to link it back to the previous podcast about soft skills, where we talk so much about whether to be successful in soft skills, in applying soft skills, actually, is it the person that you are? Is the person you are dictates your success in the soft skills arena? And what we kind of explored, and I think what we came to the conclusion of, is it's not. You just need to be the kind of person that is open to seeing things in a different way. That sounds exactly what you've just said, Michelle. You can
Yeah.
be sat in an engineer's seat one day, but if you start to actually think at the big picture, look back and think about, I mean, this is an engineer's mindset, isn't it? How do things work? Why do things work the way that they do? It sounds like then perhaps even if networking doesn't come easy, we struggle, we haven't got confidence, or we struggle to speak to new people, um, we can we
Yeah.
can make that a transition. Um, and I
What
think that
helps is, so I was an int- so let me reposition this conversation. I actually started off as an introvert. I'm actually an introvert by nature. That's why I decided to be an engineer, because I didn't like talking to people. Um,
I
what
think
helped
that's why
me,
a lot of people go engineering from
I
my
know.
experience.
And then I actually had a goal for myself in my career that I need to start learning about the other aspects of J&J. So I made a goal with myself that I'm going to meet with one new person a week. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a person who in my project team.
Yeah,
It can be anyone within J&J. That includes the custodian. That includes the person at the front desk. Learn about this person, learn how to talk about non-related topics.
yeah.
And that's something where you do one a week. What's easy is, hey, are you free for a one-on-one, a formal one-on-one? Put it on your calendar. Make it such that all you have to do is just go to that session, and that already breaks the ice for you. So
That
have your own strategy, whatever you're comfortable with. It could be one a month if you're not comfortable with it, but make something or make a timeline that makes sense for where you are right now.
I think that's so refreshing to hear, because one of my motivations with networking nowadays is not just to chase sales anymore. It's to really open up my mindset to, other areas of life that I'm perhaps not in anymore. Recruitment. I'm a recruiter, so but from the other side of things, grads that are coming up and they're dealing with going through applications. I want to network with them to understand how they are feeling, what are they experiencing. And you're saying, like, go and speak to the custodian. Fantastic. That is such a brilliant mindset to have, because so many people, I imagine, would just breeze through, not even look, the way of the receptionist, or the lady, in the canteen or whatever. But they're part of the business. They see things, they hear things. They perhaps been there for, if you're a new employee, longer than you have. You can pick up vital information. It's not all about that. What am I going to get from that person right now? That immediate gratification from, extending your network. So I think that's a really good point that I want to stress to anybody listening to this that perhaps struggles with the idea of networking. It's not all about what's going to happen tomorrow from connecting with that person. You need to think generally about how you can expand your horizons, across the board. It sounds like that's something that you're agreeing with, Michelle. Something you've
Absolutely.
done. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, it's networking. To your point earlier on, you talked about networking to be part of a career fair. Great, that's quite transactional because career fairs happen maybe once or twice a year. But see how can integrate networking into your everyday life. It might be meeting someone on your walk with your dog, you talk to them, you ask them what they do, what they love, and it becomes an organic conversation to build a relationship. It's funny because when we talk, it's hard for me to separate networking and making friends because a lot of the times both of this, you're building relationships.
same
Networking
skill
is
set.
just yeah, and skill sets, exactly. So yeah, it's just make sure that you networking, don't see it as something transactional, see it as something where it is kind of all encompassing. It doesn't matter who you're with.
I think what I'm kind of taking from that, Michelle, is it's genuine communication, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not starting a conversation. You may have an agenda, but not with a kind of an in your face agenda. Speak to the person, not what the person can do for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. That could be, I could put that as a motto. So I think we can agree, networking, majorly important. The skills behind networking, just to be, a normal human being that has fruitful, supportive relationships, we need to be able to have that genuine communication with people.